We're circling back to data-driven healthcare, and when it comes to that topic, there is kind of an elephant in the room, and that is, how about patients' rights? How about dealing with ethics and data? What are the things we have to bear in mind when it comes to that? And talking about that, we have Saija Inkeroinen. This talk will be given remotely, so we will see her on the screen. Saija Inkeroinen from the Department of Nursing Science at the University of Turku.
Thank you, and I hope you hear me well. So I am a PhD candidate in the Department of Nursing Science in University of Turku. And my topic is patients' rights in digital healthcare. And unfortunately, due to COVID, I can't be there in person, but let's do this digitally then. So I'm gonna go on with this presentation by answering a few questions. First, about what are patients' rights? What are we talking about when we talk about the rights? And when I talk about patients' rights, I mean all the people requiring care and seeking or using healthcare services. And then what are the patient knowledge-related rights, and what are these in digital healthcare? And I would like to activate you a little bit with this quote. Knowledge itself is power. This is credited to Francis Bacon, and it's not originally related to healthcare or patients' knowledge, but I think this could be useful for you to reflect throughout this presentation. So please keep this in mind. So first, what are patients' rights? The origin of the rights comes actually from the German, and originally it has had something to do with a rule that entitles us to expect or allows us to do. And that originally translated from Latin that covered right and duty, and it was associated with law, not something that people are born with, as we understand the human rights nowadays. And I use the definition of a right by Bijomp and Childress, which is a justified claim to something or and against another party. But as you can see, there are many different definitions and discussion going around the definition of rights. But what we can say about the rights is that the theory of rights is one of the most important theories for expressing the moral point of view. And it is serving as a source of protection. And keep this in mind too. And rights can be divided into legal and moral rights, and today we are going to talk both of them. One thing that I like to highlight from the rights theory is that rights are correlative to duties. And what this means is that if patients have, for example, right to know about their care, then someone else has a correlative duty to provide the information or patient educate or support the knowledge. And right now I'm looking at the healthcare professionals, healthcare providers, digital healthcare developers, educators, and so on. A very brief and simplified history of patients' rights. We can already interpret some of the traces of patients' rights from the ancient Greek, but the clear turning point was in World War II, when the United Nations declared the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. As we all know, it was part of a response to the World War II, where patients experienced horrible and unethical treatments and experiments in Nazi Germany without their knowledge or their consent. And then we jump to the 60s and 70s when we had these rights movements. Patients' organizations were very active in promoting patients' rights, and there were some law cases, especially in the United States, that shaped the patients' rights discussion or the talk about them. And also the principle of respecting patients' autonomy became a central one in healthcare instead of the paternalistic conduct. And in the 19th, we could see national level this emphasis on laws. We had some specific patient rights laws, and also like international level, we had like a strategical emphasis for patients' rights. So my topic today is the knowledge and information related rights. So what are these? And again, I would like to remind you of this knowledge is power thought. So why, if we all have already human rights, why do patients need particular rights? And the reason for that is, for example, that there is informational imbalance between patients and healthcare professionals. When you think about the knowledge that professionals have compared to patients, it's very different. And this can create power structures in care that can place patients in vulnerable position. And if you remember, the rights were there to protect them. I like this division of patients' rights into 3 domains: social rights, individual rights, and consumer-based rights. And it covers all the knowledge and information-related rights. They are like cross-cutting rights between these. And also the rights are a little bit overlapping with each other, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. So let's go through these domains. So first, the patient's rights the social rights of patients include the right to know about the patient's rights and other entitlements. The individual rights, I just put some of the central ones for this topic here. Right to know about one's own health, which is my topic in my doctoral research. Right not to know, related to that. And then some other information-related rights that we soon cover in more detail. And then the consumer-based rights is about the right to know about the services. So it's about to know the healthcare, right to know about the healthcare provider, health services, how to use them, the quality, safety, and the prices of the care. Okay, so what about digital healthcare? And first, why should we even care about them in digital healthcare? Well, we have the World Health Organization's global strategy on digital health, and it says clearly that digital health should benefit people in a way that is ethical, safe, secure, reliable, equitable, and sustainable. And it is quite obvious that patients' rights contribute to all of those. Also, the purpose of the strategy is to empower patients. And again, if we go back to the thought that knowledge is power, and we can see the power word in that empowerment. So the idea is that with knowledge, patients can be empowered, or the empowerment can be supported with knowledge, making these knowledge and information-related rights very relevant to this strategy. And also in the guiding principle 3, they specify this right perspective, saying that the strategy promotes the protection of people and population against human rights violations. And what they protect, they have, the literature has identified several perspectives that are important when we talk about knowledge and information related rights. So these are the autonomy and control in relation to the personal information, informed consent, and informational privacy, confidentiality, and protection of personal information. The patient's right to know or right to be informed should be understood as a cornerstone of all of the rights. But let's look specifically what are these rights that are relevant to digital healthcare. So in social rights, which was about the right to know about the patient's rights, we have in this WHO strategy this proposed long-term action, which is raising awareness of patients' rights. And it is, the purpose of that is to advocate people-centered health system enabled by digital health. And when we move on to individual rights, there are several ones. For example, this patient's right to know information collected about them, and it's related to this idea that patients should control their own data. And this includes right to access one's own health data, and right to know whether the data concerning them is being processed, and if it is, the right to access such data and to obtain a copy of the data. The right to protection of personal information, privacy and confidentiality was a little bit talked about today already, and it's probably familiar to all of us because probably all of us are using technology, but I just like to remind that all personal health information is always sensitive data. So this is crucial among the patient's rights. And patients have the right to informed consent, and in the context of digital healthcare, again, one of the WHO's strategy, they have this proposed long-term action to raise awareness of the concept of dynamic consent, which is often used in digital healthcare. So that should be one way, again, to support the advocate in the people-centered health system. And finally, the consumer-based rights, which was rights about the health services. This is related to artificial intelligence. So patients have right to obtain information on the reasoning underlying AI data processing operations applied to them, including the consequences of such reasoning. So as a conclusion, patients' rights are seen as a subset of human rights, making them great importance. And the rights serve as a source of protection, but also they can be supporting the patient empowerment. And these knowledge and information-related rights have great relevance to digital healthcare, so please be aware and follow the current guidelines and strategies. References and my contact info, please, I would love to continue this discussion with you, so please contact me if you would like to continue this.
Thank you very much.